Hello, everybody. Douglas V. Gibbs here, and James Madison is probably one of the lesser-known founding fathers of the primary ones, anyway. Not in the sense that nobody knows that he existed. Everybody, you say James Madison, they know that he was president at one point, that he was involved in the Constitution, and some might even say that he was the father of the Constitution. But the information about him or behind him really isn't known much. And he's an interesting sort, because going into the Constitutional Convention, he was a nationalist. In fact, all of them were to a point, to a degree, but he was especially a nationalist. And what I mean by a nationalist is that he believed that the new government should be a centralized government that controlled even domestic issues. In fact, prior to the Constitutional Convention, when it was suggested that they would have a new central government, he suggested that it should be able to overturn and repeal and replace state laws that were outside the central agreement, the Constitution or whatever document was agreed upon. So going into the Constitutional Convention, he actually believed that more like Alexander Hamilton, that the government should be a big centralized government that dictated to the states. He arrived early, before pretty much everybody else did. So what he did while he was waiting is he sketched out an outline for what he felt the new Constitution should be following. And he had these nationalist ideas in that outline. The basic outline was used, but many of it was tossed, the nationalistic part. James Madison, interestingly enough, as President of the United States and after the Constitution, was one of the most ardent Federalists that you'll come across in your studies. In fact, he understood the Constitution to the point that he recognized that nationalism was dangerous and that it was all about the limited government. It was about the federal government's limited authorities that really made it a strong competitor for what should be our central government. In the 1823 book, A New View of the Constitution of the United States by John Taylor explains that at the beginning of the Constitution, when they all arrived, they were pretty much all nationalists, all big government-minded guys. So what changed James Madison, and for the most part, most of the rest of the founding fathers, the framers of the U.S. Constitution in 1787? A part of it was the fact that they went through that process. They argued, they fought, they compromised. And they realized that as much as they wanted a national government, when it came to state sovereignty, state autonomy, liberty, and ensuring that the federal government did not interfere with the internal affairs of people's lives and the internal affairs of the states, they went from nationalist to federalist through that 4.5-month period. And in the case of James Madison, he was one of three that actually took notes during the convention. And in fact, if you go to the Avalon Project online, you can find James Madison's notes on the federal Constitution in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1787. James Madison, as president, also, to show you how much he understood the Constitution and feared the Congress utilizing its powers in ways that it shouldn't, in 1817 he actually vetoed a public works bill called the Bonus Bill. And in it he explains, in that written veto, he explains the dangers of using the General Welfare Clause as an excuse to push legislation through Congress at the federal level. Interestingly enough, now the General Welfare Clause is a clause used majority of the time by our Congress critters in today's world. In fact, HR 2021, HR 1, HR 5, and HR 127, HR 1 being a federalization of the election laws. HR 5 adds transgenderism and homosexuality to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and HR 127 basically makes federal gun laws no different than California's gun laws, essentially, and then some more creates a federal registry and all that, which is very unconstitutional. All three of them, if you look them up, the authors, the sponsors of those bills, use the quote-unquote federal, the federal Constitution's General Welfare Clause as their constitutional authority. Of course, the General Welfare Clause is not supposed to be a clause, according to James Madison, but a condition that is met should the federal government do its job properly. In other words, if the federal government is doing its job properly externally, then internally there will be a general sense that all's well. James Madison understood this, and that's why he wrote it in the 1817 veto of the bonus bill. Unfortunately, today, our Congress critters don't. So James Madison, the father of the Constitution, began more like Alexander Hamilton, but by the end of the convention, he was quite the Jeffersonian. Thanks for listening. You'll notice on the bottom right-hand side of today's video, there's an additional image or piece of information. On Saturdays from 1 to 3 Pacific, I am on KMET 1490 AM radio. I have joined Patriot's Soapbox. And so as of the beginning of March of 2021, I will begin also broadcasting on Patriot's Soapbox. Saturdays 3 to 5 Pacific. Patriots Soapbox.com. That's PatriotSoapbox.com. So, yeah, 4 hours of radio. 2 hours on KMET, 2 hours on Patriot Soapbox. The 2 hours on KMET will be, I will be joined with by my co-hosts, Dennis and Alan. You can call into that program, 951-922-3532. Patriot Soapbox is an online network, and you can't call in, but I'll be solo. It'll be just myself, my microphone, and you. As for the videos, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching this one about James Madison and his surprise conversion from Nationalist to Federalist. See you next time.